what we call a family trust, and have that set up so that your family is protected. In other words, your half of the community will be available for the surviving spouse's support, but then at the surviving spouse's death, it doesn't go to a new husband or wife. It goes directly to the kids. So sometimes it's important to focus on what some of the non-tax objectives are,
right,
so that you make sure that at least your separate property and your half of the community property goes down your bloodline and isn't susceptible to being transferred to a second spouse and then lost to the family. So that kind of trust planning, regardless of the tax aspects, is increasingly popular among clients, because you find many of the clients have been married more than once, and this is a real concern.
right. So related to that, we've got a couple of different varieties, I guess. So one, we have the bypass type trust.
Sure, that's a bypass trust, and the bypass basically means that you're bypassing the second tax, and you do that by utilizing the exemption.
Right.
Okay, so if we had an estate of combined community property estate of $7 million, let's keep it simple. It's all cash. $3.5 million would go to the survivor, because the survivor is absolutely entitled to their half of the community, and then the other half, $3.5 million, would go into the family trust, because that's the amount of the existing exemption, and then that would be available typically for the surviving spouse's support. But then the testamentary control of the surviving spouse would be limited, so that at the surviving spouse's death, the balance in that trust, the part of the $3.5 million that wasn't necessary to support the surviving spouse, goes to the children from the first marriage, and there's no risk that it gets tangled up with the surviving spouse's second spouse.
This all sounds neat and tidy, folks, but it's all really messy when we work with it. I guess I warned you about that.
Well, no, it is, but it's better to have a plan. It's better to have these systems.
Better to do it than not to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's better to have the system in place, because the basic protections will be there. Not that they're easily enforced. There's all kinds. I'm sure Michael has stories and I have stories, about this. But at the same time, I've never been sorry that I at least had the plan in place, and the times where the clients haven't done it, I mean, I think that leads to complete chaos.
Yeah. And then another alternative then for the family type situation, for continuing, is the Q-tip type trust, or qualified terminable interest property.
Correct, and that's basically, that covers the part of the deceased spouses, half of the community property and their separate property estate that isn't covered by the exemption. So let's say we have somebody with $10 million now. So now we have $5 million is the half of the deceased spouse's half, and she wants to protect it so that it goes to her kids, from her marriage to the husband. But she knows the husband's gonna get a second wife, and she doesn't want that wife to get her half of the community. But it's $5 million. It's larger than the $3.5 million exemption. What do you do there? Well, you put the $3.5 million in the family trust, like we discussed, and then the $1.5 million can go into a what we call a Q-tip, or the qualified terminal interest trust, which is designed to do two things. One, qualify for the marital deduction, so there's no tax at the first death, but also protect that $1.5 million so that it ultimately goes to the children from the first marriage and isn't again susceptible to being transferred to a second spouse.
Right. And part of the requirement in order to meet this, qualify as a Q-tip, is that the surviving spouse has to agree that that's going to be included in his or her estate on the estate tax return for that person.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And I think, you know, and so it's kind of a, you know, a deal you have to make with the government to defer the tax, but at the very least, at least it sets up so that as to that amount over the exemption, it still has some protection for the children.
Right. Now the next trust that I wanted to talk about, and time is going here, is the
Well, we're having a good time.
Yeah, that's good. Qualified domestic trust.
Well, qualified domestic trust is very popular here in Silicon Valley because we have a lot of individuals, typically you know, highly trained engineering types, who have lived here but really have retained their citizenship in you know, a foreign country, and so it's the rule is that if they're a resident alien, but they don't have U.S. citizenship, they have to have a special kind of trust in order to qualify the gifts to the surviving spouse for the marital deduction. See, Ronald Reagan in 1981 enacted this unlimited marital deduction, which means that transfers between spouses that qualify are not subject to any estate tax. And I've been practicing long enough when I started, we didn't have this in 76, and a lot of widows had to pay taxes, and widowers had to pay taxes on assets they received from the husband. So in order to take advantage of this unlimited marital deduction, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you have to have a special type of trust, which where the assets go into it, and they're available for the support of the surviving spouse if needed, but the U.S.'s jurisdiction to tax those assets is protected. And so I think that's a very common trust that we run into, more so in Silicon Valley than almost, you know, you'd find like in places where we don't have this vibrant, you know, immigration and people from out of town,
Yeah.
or out of the country.
Out of the country, right.
Out of the country.
So we're going to have to start to wind up here, but yeah, I wanted to bring up this issue, and people who are resident aliens that live in the United States, they have special requirements, and even related to gift tax considerations.
Correct.
Because they have very limited gift tax exclusions.
Correct.
So I would recommend that anybody that is here get some advice from an attorney. Also, I'm just going to mention here the Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust. We don't have time to really talk about it very much, but it's another very important planning tool that's sort of a key one.
Yeah, correct. Many people will have, you know, an estate that's pretty under control, but then they maybe have life insurance that really tips the balance. That life insurance, in many cases, would be best held by an irrevocable insurance trust so that it's completely out of the estate.
Okay. So with that, Frank, we're out of time.
Well, we had a good time.
So I want to thank you very much for being with me and being my guest today.
Thank you.
And hopefully we can do some more again, maybe talking some more details and some other issues. And so I hope that you all got some valuable information and now are inclined to go ahead with progressing with your estate plan. And I hope that we see you next time on the next edition of Financial Insider Weekly.